All right. Sunday, June 11th. It's my baby girl's birthday on the 18th. I've been thinking about her lots lately. So every time I look at the date, I'm like, 7 more days, right? She'll be 25, which is crazy. And I remember when I was 30, when I had Mackenzie, or just turning 30, and I was like, oh my goodness, when she's 30, I'm going to be 60. And that seems so far away. Now it doesn't seem quite so far away. Today I wanted to talk about I watched a docu-series on Netflix yesterday on Arnold Schwarzenegger. And um I know a little bit about his story, but not a lot about his story. And it was set up really well. It was set apart in three different, like, it's a 3 hour documentary, and each documentary was on a portion of his life. So the first was about him as a bodybuilder, the second one was him as an actor, and the third one was him as a politician. And he starts talking about when he decided that he felt like Austria was never his home. Like, he knew he was born there, but he just never felt that he belonged to Austria, and that Austria belonged to him. And he even went to a place where he questioned if maybe his father was an American soldier. His dad was an Austrian soldier, and I can't remember what, like, rank, but I think he was quite high up in the service. And so he just had this affinity, this calling, this draw to to not be in Austria, but more so to be in America. But at first, it just started out. This is my interpretation of it, just not being drawn to being part of Austria. And he, from a very young age, uh, wanted to be a bodybuilder. And so he saw a movie in the 60s, the first Hercules movie. And in the movie was a bodybuilder. His name was Reg. And he was like, that's my role model. That's what I want to do. I want a body like that. I want to look like that. And so he started to focus. That was his main focus. So everything was to go around that. And what he said was so interesting. He said in his bedroom, so they lived in an upstairs floor of an older house that was built in the 1800s, I think he said. And he and his family had the top floor. And in his bedroom, he would cut up pictures of magazines of what he wanted to look like. And he said, I laid in bed twice a day, if not more. Or, he said, I laid in bed twice a day and imagined that was me on the photos. I imagined me winning, and even at that young age, winning Mr. Universe, winning competitions. I imagined traveling the world. I imagined financial success. And it never occurred to him that it wouldn't happen. Like, it wasn't even a he said, did I have doubts? He said, not really doubts, but was it hard? Sometimes, yes. But he said, I never thought it wouldn't happen. It wasn't like, well, if this happens, it was like, this is going to happen. And he was 17. I think he was 17 years old. I might have this data wrong. When he won his first bodybuilding competition, which is really unheard of. And he went, and so he always focused on this. Whatever he was doing, the end result. So if he got a job, in order to bodybuild, he did this in order to be on stage, to win. And it wasn't bodybuilding per se, it was to win. It was to be the number one. And he also mentioned that, in his family, was very competitive in his family, and the way that his family dynamic was set up, his dad created competition between him and his brother. And so, we can look at that story, and he talks about, like, I didn't have a great childhood, but I never talk about it because it really doesn't matter. He said, there's lots of people who haven't had a great childhood. And he said, it's irrelevant. My childhood is irrelevant. And, it made me start to, I guess, once again, realize it's the dedication, the fortitude, the decision-making process that leads us to success. And for him, this was his definition of success, and nothing, no obstacle got in the way of manifesting the success. I think this is part of what the divine masculine is. So if I think, it's my own personal point of view, if I look at what the divine masculine is, the divine masculine is that it's very committed, not necessarily competitive. I don't necessarily think competition is incorrect. I'm not sure. I have no opinion at this point in time if it's part of being a divine masculine energy. In my head, a divine masculine energy is focused, but not necessarily competitive. But again, I have no data, so I'm just sharing and expressing a point of view. But the divine masculine is committed, is focused, this is what I want, and and then it's that taking action. The divine masculine is the part of all of us that takes action, the doer in all of us. And I believe that we need a balance of both, especially as women. I believe the same thing for men, but I don't work with men, so again, I'll kind of set that thought aside. But if we think about, are we and we think about other athletes, and I really like using athletes as an example, because they literally have a dream, and every decision that they make, from how they sleep, where they sleep, right, the things that they put in their bodies, move towards this dream. And they imagine, being on the podium, and they imagine winning gold. And anyone that you speak to, or anyone that you've read any biography, this is what they all say, which is, all I thought about, right, was when I was thinking about something was winning. For them, it was winning. It was the success piece. And so what parts of us can resonate with that, and what parts of us are in resistance to that, right? If there's a resistance to being that focused on the end result, on this one thing, are we resisting focusing on the one thing? And what I realized was that I have a limiting belief around being focused on one thing. I'm like, but where's the balance, and what happens to the family? And I have a beautiful, limiting story around it as I started to unpack it this morning. And it was like, what if we could have it all? What if we could have the balance and focus on the thing that we desired? What if we could have a magnificent obsession, is what Wallace D. Wattles calls it. What if we could have this magnificent obsession as to moving towards what we wanted? And the steps were simple, where we just imagined being the thing. We just imagined being the thing. And then we behaved because we were imagining us being that thing. So our behavior then reflects the future us. The behavior then doesn't reflect the past us, but reflects the future us, and maybe not even the now us. Maybe it's only the future us that our behavior reflects in this moment of time, until the now us and the future us line up together. And so when he was bodybuilding, he won Mr. Universe, and then he was working for Joe Weider, and who was a really big supplement, or was a huge supplement company. Joe Weider was like the grandfather of bodybuilding, the father of bodybuilding. And so Arnold was working for him, and there was nothing beyond Mr. Universe. So there was a Mr. Universe in America, there was a Mr. Universe in London, and Arnold won the London one a couple of times, and then was invited by Joe Weider to come to America and do the Mr. Universe in the States. And he lost to I even know this bodybuilder's name, Zane, something Zane, and was devastated because he was not used to losing. He, in his very first bodybuilding competition, pardon me, I think he placed second, and then the second bodybuilding competition he was in, he placed first, and he was first all the time after that. And so, but when he went to the States, he placed second and was shocked because he just figured he'd had it because he'd won Mr. Universe in the States. And he said it was, after he went home and licked his wounds for a week, he realized that the American body was much different than a European body. And so the requirements were different. And so then he really focused on those particular requirements. And started and found, I think it's Jeff Zane was his name, found out where Jeff Zane was working out. This is when he moved to Venice Beach, California, and started working out with Jeff Zane and all of the other Mr. Universes, or people who were competing in Mr. Universe. When there was nothing else left, Joe Weider created a Mr. Olympian, which is all of the competitors from Mr. Universe all over the world come and compete. And over again, Arnold won Mr. Olympian. And when he realized that he had got to the top of his field and that there was nothing left, he decided then to start his acting career, and met lots of resistance within the acting career, and pursued, because he had decided he was going to be he didn't even decide he was going to be in movies. He decided he was going to be an action hero, and he was going to be the main character, and he was going to be a superstar. I think that was the word he used. He was going to be a superstar. And because he had, again, this like such fortitude, the more no's that he heard, the more resilient he became, which it leads to the next point for today, which is do we believe in resiliency? Are we behaving with resiliency? If we hear a no, what happens, right? Do we pause and regroup and then go back? Or do you stop and then go in a different direction? And do you stop because maybe you think that it's that the universe, God, divine source energy doesn't want you to do it? And so do you stop and go in a different direction? And so I was reflecting upon that this morning, of how many times have I stopped when it got too hard, right? And I took that as a sign that maybe I just wasn't supposed to be doing it. And it goes back to a quote that my dad used to say to me. He goes, you make, and what he said to me is, you make things so hard on you, Ranchelle. If you could just swim with the stream, you're always constantly swimming upstream. And so then when I was watching this, I was in bed journaling, and I thought, is there a way to create it so it doesn't feel like it's swimming upstream, or is upstream a bad thing? And how many times have I slowed down or taken a different direction or stopped because things got hard? And if the message isn't to stop, what is the message? Right? What is the message? And so what I saw in the documentaries with Arnold Schwarzenegger was, every time he had a no, he looked at what the no was about, and then worked on what that no was about. So the first no was no because he had too thick of an accent and he couldn't be understood. So he took voice lessons, and so he could be understood. The second one was because he was too big. He was a bodybuilder, and he wasn't willing to not be a bodybuilder. And so he was looking then for roles, and pitched roles for people who wanted to do the body, who were had the size of a bodybuilder. And his first movie, well, this wasn't his first, but his first movies were a flop. And then he did Conan the Barbarian, and that kind of set off his career. But he didn't take no as don't no, you could never do this. It was no, and here's why you can't do it. And he made some improvements. And I think that if I look back at my life, and if I've ever stopped from hearing a series of no, it was because I was trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, which what was required of me was to approach it differently. So not to give up on it, but to approach it differently. And so part of what I wanted to share today was also that thought process of how many times have you stopped, but also how many times are you going on the same pathway expecting a different result? So what within you, within all of us, within me, needs to shift so that we can approach it with a different belief, different mindset, a different action, in order for us to create a different result. Remember, we are the cause. Our thoughts are the cause. The outcome, the environment, the results, right, are the effect. So part of us has to shift in order, in order for that to happen. Right? It's like, and what are we not willing to let go of, or what are we not releasing, or what are we afraid to approach, or what are we? And this all can organically be answered through questions, right? Through questions. And if you ask yourself open-ended questions and you really get like a total blank, like you're just like, I got nothing, then ask yourself specific questions, like yes or no questions, because you might be of the human design type that needs to ask like a guttural response of aha or uh-uh. And that could be why open-ended questions aren't working. So do you have a dream that you set aside? And what if you just held on to the dream and then were inspired to take action? And what if obstacles and challenges didn't mean you weren't, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not meant to have or do the thing that you want, but there's something, there's an obstacle, a challenge. And again, I don't like to use the word lesson, but there's something that needs to be moved through, kind of like the stream we talked about, the water, right? There's a rock in the water doesn't try to like bust through it. The water just redirects, right? It goes over it. It might go under it, but it certainly goes around it, right? So what can we do to be like water, to go around it, to go over it, to go under it, whatever that looks like, right? A refinement, right? I love that. It's a great word. We need a refinement. And what are we willing to refine or not? All right. I think that's everything. Hang on, just let me check in. No. I will stop the recording though, and then if anyone wants to chat, we can.